If a debtor filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, he must wait 8 years from the first bankruptcy filing before he can file a second Chapter 7 bankruptcy. If a debtor receives a discharge in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, he must wait 6 years from the prior Chapter 7 bankruptcy filing to file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy and receive a discharge upon completion. The debtor may file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy before the 6-year mark, but he will not receive a discharge. However, depending on the debtor's situation, it may not be important that he receive a discharge. A Chapter 13 bankruptcy has uses wherein a discharge may not be important, such as when a debtor files Chapter 13 solely to prevent foreclosure on his home. There is no waiting period when the prior Chapter 7 bankruptcy had a defined payout. If a debtor files a Chapter 13 bankruptcy and receives a discharge, he must wait 4 years from the prior case filing in order to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy for which he could receive a discharge. Finally, if a debtor files a Chapter 13 bankruptcy and receives a discharge, he must wait 2 years from the prior Chapter 13 filing before he can file a second Chapter 13 bankruptcy and receive a discharge. These rules, especially as they apply to Chapter 13 bankruptcy, mandate waiting periods when a discharge is granted. If a debtor files Chapter 13 bankruptcy and the case is dismissed by the bankruptcy judge for non-payment to the trustee or other factors, then no discharge is granted. The debtor can then file a second or even a third Chapter 13 bankruptcy in a dismissed case once the dismissal order is entered by the bankruptcy judge. If the debtor files a second Chapter 13 bankruptcy within a certain time after the first Chapter 13 bankruptcy is dismissed, the debtor must negotiate additional procedural requirements in order to receive the protections provided by the bankruptcy. This involves extending the automatic stay to protect the debtor's assets and stop collection efforts by creditors. If a debtor files a third Chapter 13 bankruptcy within a prescribed amount of time after the second Chapter 13 bankruptcy is dismissed, the debtor must take action to enact the automatic stay in order to receive these same protections.